It all starts with a girl called Chin Sa-rang, so we go to the King Hotel, where they are doing rounds of interviews for hiring. Several people pass by, including this guy who got nervous and ran out before the interview was over. In charge of doing the interviews is this woman, Gu Hyua-ran, executive director of the King Group, as besides the hotel. There is also a jewelry store and an airline, but we will get to know her better later because it is time for person 511 to be interviewed. Yes, Sa-rang, although things do not start very well for her as her heels break, but she will not let that stop her. Meanwhile, Hyua did not know why Sa-rang had been chosen to be interviewed, as they only accepted people with a degree. But there is no turning back now. Rang enters and introduces herself to everyone. There is an awkward silence, and Hyua, seeing that Sa-rang's hobby was the piano, asks her to play, but there is none there, and she knows it, so Rang improvises something. Hyua mentions that Rang decided to play something quite basic, to which she replies that it is her hobby, not speciality. She is not good, but she likes to play. Moments later, Hyua wants to see her smile, so Sa-rang shows it to her. But we jump from this smile to this bitter face. Sa-rang meets her friends, Kang Da-yul and Pyong Hwa. Rang tells them how the interviews went, and they laugh and tell her that she should have played some Beethoven. Rang is not very cheerful about the interview, as they require a degree to be an intern for 1 month. She says she went to the interview to know how the interviews in luxurious hotels in Korea were like. Her friends suggest her to look for a job elsewhere, but Sa-rang wants to work in a hotel. Moments later, a guy approaches Kang to buy her a drink. When she sees the guy's friends, she gets discouraged, but they still exchange phone numbers. Sa-rang and Pyong don't agree with this. Anyway, that said, Kang asks them to dance. Sa-rang refuses because she is tired, but they drag her along. For someone who didn't feel like it, she had a good time, as did Kang and Pyong. The next morning, Sa-rang wakes up to a call on her phone. She, despite her hangover, answers, and to her surprise, the King Hotel is calling to tell her that she has been accepted. She can't believe it, then wakes them both up from the excitement and tells them what happened. From there we meet this peculiar guy, who prepares to make the most epic entrance we've ever seen, falling to work by parachute. At first, it seemed that he had landed and his plan went well. But the reality is that they call him to tell him that he fell in the wrong building. His plan was to land in King's Group, but that doesn't take away from the fact that the entrance was great. He is going as an intern, just like these other people. This guy tells them that the best quality of an intern is to have common sense. He does this to throw in the boy's face that he was late for saying he thought it was the building next door. Besides that, he asks him where he bought his shoes. He replies that in Milan, to which the guy starts talking about his clothes and watch as well, as he thinks he is pretending to wear expensive clothes and accuses the boy of thinking he is a nobleman. He asks him if he is an heir, and when the boy doesn't answer, he calls him inconsiderate and makes it clear to everyone that they should just follow his orders. Later, this bespectacled guy named Sang Shik asks the boy if this is his first internship and tells him not to be late again. He replies that he wasn't, to which Sang tells him that he should always be 30 minutes early. The boy asks him why he talks to him as if they were friends, to which Sang replies that they are co-workers and must work together, after which the boy says that there is nothing to do. So Sang gives him a calculator to pretend to do something, and tells him that wearing more expensive clothes than his superiors is a sign of rebellion. But the boy never bragged about anything. Moments later, the guy from before calls them both and assigns them tasks. The boy is to make some copies. Moments later, we see him Googling how to use a photocopier. Sang approaches him to show him how to use it, then notices that the cartridge is empty, to which the guy says it's just a sensor problem and he should shake it out. Sang follows orders, until a moment comes when the cartridge explodes. Moments later, someone in a higher position arrives angrily to find out what happened. The guy blames Sang, so they scold him. The guy tells him not to apologize as he did nothing wrong. He was just following orders. He also clarifies that this happened because the photocopier was not replaced when it was due, so it's the company's fault. The guy gets angry and ends up telling them both to clean up the mess and then tells them not to come back the next day. But why does this guy act that way? Moments later, he calls for cleaners to come and take care of the mess and replace the photocopier. The boy said he called Director Choi, so this guy begins to understand what is going on. The boy, despite being an intern, is Gu-won, son of the president of King's Group. The guy's face falls with embarrassment and apologizes to him, to which Gu says he will abide by the order not to come the next day. Moments later, they arrive to take care of the mess. This guy tells Gu that if he leaves now, the president will be furious, to which Gu replies that he was fired. Then Gu goes back to Sang and tells him to go with him, as Sang had told him that being there doesn't guarantee him a contract. So if Sang goes with him, Gu will offer him a full-time position. Sang agrees to go with Gu. Later, we see that Gu's father, Il-hun, is angry with him. We also find out that Hyua-ran is Gu's sister, although they don't get along at all. Gu tells his father that he was kicked out, and makes it clear that he is no good at it, so he wants to go back to the United Kingdom. Hyua-ran intervenes to tell Hun that Gu can start at the bottom after studying. He asks Gun why he is not half as good as Hyua-ran, which she says not to be hard on him. Then they want to talk alone. Hyua tells him to go to the hotel. Gu refuses. He wants to stay at home that night, but Hyua-ran tells him that he has no one to stay there. That is not his home. Hyua tells him to stay at the hotel and leave as soon as possible. and whatever he chooses to be, she will support him financially, this because she does not want Gu to be hanging around the house or the company. Gu tells her that he has money, but thanks her ironically for taking care of him. Hyua returns to tell Hun that Gu will be staying at the hotel. Hyua tells him that it would be best not to push Gu and leave him alone, to which Hun asks her to make sure she doesn't give him a hard time. Moments later, we see Gu arrive at the King Hotel. The next morning, Sa Rang does so too, as it will be her first day of work. She is very excited. She cannot hide her smile. At that moment, she remembers when she was a child and came to this hotel for the first time with her mother. After that, she goes along with other people to the first training, where they are told that they should treat the guests like a king, as they should give satisfactory service and touch hearts. They are told that they should forget their emotions for the sake of the guests. Everyone is ready for it. They even teach them how to smile. Manager Kim takes Sa Rang to the gym, where she is greeted by this girl with not a very good face. She tells Sa Rang that she will be leaving in a month. Sa Rang's first task as an intern is to wipe the butt sweat off the gym machines. She accepts with a smile, even if it disgusts her. Later, the girl asks Sa Rang why she is always smiling, to which she replies that she was taught to keep smiling while working. The girl tells her that she should save that for the hotel, as they are only in charge of cleaning the gym while wearing sportswear, while the other workers wear uniforms, and she tells her again that she will only be there for a month. Sa Rang says she will do her best, to which the girl tells her that she has been stuck there for 5 years and is still doing the same thing. Sa Rang tells her that at least she is working full-time. The girl boasts that she is better than Sa Rang and orders her to go and continue cleaning. But Sa Rang is not the only one with a job. Pyong finds herself working for King Airline as a stewardess. Her superior tells her that before the next flight, she must look for famous places and make a reservation. She doesn't want the hotel food, she wants to try something different. Then, as no one wants to share a room with her, she decides to choose arbitrarily and ends up being Pyong. Later, we see that she gives him stupid and exaggerated orders. While they were sleeping, Pyong sought to make the reservation as she had requested, but she scolds her because she is sensitive and can't sleep if someone uses a phone nearby. But things don't end there, because that woman snores like nobody else and Pyong can't even sleep. On the other hand, Kang works in the jewelry shop in the King Shopping Mall, where she also has foolish superiors, as she is ordered to go and get food that the manager wants to eat. So Kang hurries and starts ordering the food, but her manager wants the food so exactly that Kang has to ask the cook to prepare the dishes differently, which is why the cook at first refuses and Kang has to beg her. After returning with the food, she is told that the manager went to the cafeteria and wants pork chop from there, so now she must go there and bring the food to each of them. Afterwards, we see how the three of them work to exhaustion. After that, we see that Sang arrives at the hotel to introduce herself to Gu, who is buying clothes. The saleswoman shows him a tiger shirt. There are only 3 in the country and 1 has already been sold, so Gu buys the remaining 2. Sang misunderstands because he thinks one of the shirts is for him, but both are Gu's, as he hates it when someone wears the same clothes as him. Furthermore, he tells Sang to get ready to travel to the UK so he won't return. Sang has no passport, as he never had the chance to leave the country before, so he will apply for it right now. Sang asks Gu if he will accept him as a full-time employee, so Gu makes a call to make it official. Then we see this reception girl named Kim Soo-mai waiting for someone at the exit. She talks to Sang and flirts with him, as she thinks he is Gu, so she leaves him her phone number. From there we go back to the gym, where there is this Elon Musk-like guy making exaggerated noises while working out. He, seeing Sa Rang, likes her, while she was just sorry she had to do such a disgusting job. The guy is still going about his business, and we notice he has a shirt similar to the ones Gu bought, so we know this is the guy who took one of the 3. Sa Rang notices his presence only because of how loud he is. Then they approach him to tell him to stop making so much noise. Moments later, we see the obnoxious girl approach Sa Rang to give her what appears to be a tip from a guest. She tells her it was the guy in the tiger shirt. Then we see Gu go to the hotel gym with his new shirt, the tiger shirt he bought moments ago. Sa Rang opens the letter and reads it. This guy was flirting with her and offered to go to his room. This makes Sa Rang very uncomfortable and annoyed, so she immediately goes out to look for the guy in the tiger shirt to confront him. It is here when things get complicated because she confuses the guy with Gu, as he is wearing the same shirt. She goes up to him, and when she sees that Gu does not respond, she accelerates the machine and makes him fall. Later, she asks him to stop disrespecting her and that nothing gives him the right to treat her that way. Besides calling him a pervert and then leaving, Gu does not understand anything and tries to talk to her, but Sa Rang just ignores him. At that moment, Hyua shows up to tell him to keep his voice down at her hotel. Gu tells that the hotel is not hers yet. Besides, he is also a guest. Gu tells her that he will be leaving soon, so he wants to be treated as a guest while he is there. Sa Rang goes back to work after venting to the wrong person. Hyua Ran keeps walking around the gym until she meets Sa Rang. She approaches HWA and thanks her for hiring her. Hyua confirms that Sa Rang has received the basic training, so she will ask her some questions. Sa Rang answers correctly each one of them, leaving her co-worker surprised. Sa Rang learned many things about the hotel as well as handling English well, so Hyua asks them to take Sa Rang to the lobby. She gets excited, because this is a promotion. This girl tries to reason with Hyua by belittling Sa Rang, but Hiyua is clear. Sa Rang must be seen, no matter if she is a 1-month intern. She is suitable to be the face of the hotel because of her smile. This girl still does not agree with Sa Rang's promotion. She tells her that everyone there speaks English, but Sa Rang shuts her mouth as she also speaks perfect Chinese and Japanese. This girl is still jealous, as she thinks Sa Rang is not fit to be in the lobby. Sa Rang just thanks her and keeps her smile on her face. On the other hand, we see that Gu is planning to call his father, until he is interrupted by Hiyua as his checkout time has passed. She tells him that there is no need to call father. She will do it. Gu tells her ironically that the hotel service is great, to which Hiyua replies that it is, as she is the owner. Hiyua tells Gu to settle in the United Kingdom and not to return, as it will complicate things for him, but that is his decision. Although he assures her that he will not return, so he leaves. On the way out, he and Sa Rang cross paths again. Both look at the hotel and then go their separate ways. At home, Sa Rang's friends celebrate her promotion. It is quite a feat, as she has managed to become the first full-time employee of the King Hotel without a degree. Sa Rang says her internship only lasted 1 year, to which they both say that 1 year will turn into 2 and so on. Pyong wants to have Sa Rang's superiors, as she is surrounded by ladies who abuse power. Sa Rang is very quiet, as she has no wishes, except that no one should bother her. Kang tells her that she should go to a world full of hope, to which Pyong asks where that is. Kang pulls out a gold club card, so they will go there to celebrate. This is when we see how the years start to go by. In 2017, Sa Rang got the award for the best talent of the King Hotel. The years kept going by and Gu was in the United Kingdom. In 2019, Kang got married. In 2021, Sa Rang got a boyfriend, and a year later, Gu finished his studies being the best student. That same year, Sa Rang became a full-time employee. So until we get to the present, we see that Gu goes to his huge castle, where the biggest domo gives him a package. Gu knows it's for him, but it doesn't say who it's from. The package was delivered by a stranger on a motorbike. Gu opens the package and reads the letter. At night, we see him thoughtful. The letter he received had Han Maiso's name on it, so for some reason, this makes him change his mind and he wants to go back to Korea. This caught Sang off guard. He asks how long they will be to know how many things to pack. Gu tells him to pack in 10 minutes and meet them at the airport. From there we jump to the King Hotel training. This time led by Sa Rang. She tells them that they must smile first and foremost and that the smile must be genuine at all times. Then the training is interrupted because a guest came down to the lobby and looks for Sa Rang. She goes immediately. The guest is this lady. She asks Sa Rang if she was the one in charge of waking her up in the morning. She replies yes. Sa Rang knows her. As a music lover could not fail to recognize her. Sa Rang tells her that it is an honor to have her stay at the hotel, which makes the lady happy. She says she has received many calls from hotels all over the world, but it was the first time she woke up with the area she used to sing. 1 year ago she left the stage, but at that time she felt like a prima donna, so she thanks Sa Rang for bringing her back to those days of youth and learns the name Sa Rang. Afterwards, we see that Gu returns. Later, he meets at his father's house. He asks him how it feels to come back after a while. He replies that it is the same, to which Hun tells him not to think about leaving again and start working there. HWA asks him not to go ahead, as he is just visiting. To Hiyua's surprise and anger, Gu has decided to work. Specifically at the hotel, Hun is happy, as he waited for this for a long time. He talks to both of them and tells them that either one of them could be the successor or neither. Hun asks Gu to live there instead of the hotel. Gu replies that the hotel is more comfortable. Then Hun tells Gu to come home before his mother's anniversary ritual. Gu asks which mother he means, as he doesn't even know what his mother looks like or whether she is alive or not. Awkward silence fills the room and Hun decides to get up from the table without saying much else. On the other hand, Hiyua tells Gu that he looks like his mother. Reckless like her, Gu leaves the house. Sang is waiting for him, but he tells him that he wants to go back alone. That's why Sang decides to get wet in the rain with Gu in order to accompany him, since he knows that Gu has no friend to drink with. Gu tells Sang that he is insolent and to stop pretending to laugh. Sang asks Gu what his initial position at the hotel will be. Gu misunderstands, as Sang was actually referring to his own position, as he needs authority to protect Gu, as he is the only one capable of dealing with Gu's toxic attitude. Gu tells Sang to take the car and go back. He will go to the hotel alone, but Sang doesn't move away from him one bit. He sticks to his arm. On the other hand, we see that Sa Rang is together with Kang and Pyong drinking. Sa Rang says she feels sick to her stomach, to which they then mention her boyfriend, Gong Yunam. Kang didn't even remember that Sa Rang had a boyfriend. They are interrupted by Kang's daughter. She asks the three of them to stop drinking in that place, as it will damage her reputation. Kang mentions that she wants to dance under the lights all night with a bottle of beer. So they reminisce about the good old days. Moments later, the lights go out and a children's song plays, and this is the perfect excuse for the three of them to relive the good old days by joining the children's party. The next day, Gu prepares for his first day of work. Sang asks him when he plans to fix that broken watch, but Gu just takes it and puts it on, as it has a huge sentimental value to him even though it is broken. Sang tells Gu that since it is the first day, they should start with a big smile, but Gu says he hates fake smiles. After going upstairs, Gu remembers that he left his phone. Sang says that he will take care of it and tell someone to bring it. So Gu goes on his way, but he also realizes that he left the papers. On the other hand, we see that Sa Rang is not feeling well at all, and Kim gives the order to go to the suite and get her phone and take it to Mrs. Hwa's office. Sa Rang refuses, as she is very sick to her stomach, but Kim does not change her position and tells her to go quickly so that she can go to the toilet. Sa Rang has no choice but to do so she goes as best she can to look for the phone, which belongs to Gu. On the other hand, Gu is returning to the room to look for the papers. Sa Rang finds the phone, but she can't take it anymore, so she goes into the bathroom at the same time Gu enters the room. Gu finds the papers, but not the phone. Meanwhile, Sa Rang was playing with the bathroom walls. Gu was about to return without noticing her until he looks at something out of the corner of his eye and turns around, only to find Sa Rang in the bathroom moments later. Sa Rang notices and panics. Letting go of control, Gu turns away from her as she tries to take control back. Gu tells she has to leave, to which she asks him to leave. But Gu needs his phone, so he opens the door, which makes Sa Rang end up falling on his chest. Gu asks for his phone back and she apologizes to him. After seeing her face, Gu recognizes her. She tells him that she has never seen him and leaves. Gu follows her. When he catches up with her, he tells her he remembers that she was the one who called him a pervert in the gym. Sa Rang starts to remember. It is there when she calls him a pervert again for seeing her inside the bathroom, but Gu tells her that she is the pervert for playing with the bathroom windows like that. Sa Rang apologizes for today, but demands an apology from him for what happened that time in the gym. Gu doesn't understand why he should apologize, so Sa Rang tries to leave, but Gu hasn't finished talking to her. Sa Rang is still confused and tells Gu that she is not interested in him. Seeing that she didn't want to talk, Gu warns her that he doesn't want to see her again. She agrees, as that's what she wants too. As the elevator opens, Gu enters saying that guests go first. Later, we see that Gu brought his resume to Hwa. She acknowledges that he must really want to work there, but Gu says that rules are rules. Hwa tells him that he still needs to bring 2 copies of the family register. Outside the office, Sang was there. Kim approaches him again as she still believes Sang is the president's son. She starts telling him that she has a meeting soon. Sang invites her to dinner. Kim accepts immediately. After she leaves, he starts to celebrate that she accepted the invitation. What he doesn't know is that Kim thinks he is Gu. As for him, Sang tells him to ask someone to go get his family register, as Gu is expected for the opening ceremony. After that ceremony, Gu will have a dinner with the board and VIPs. Gu refuses, but this is a direct order from the president to the public relations team. The ceremony is about to begin and Sang beckons to Kim. Kim welcomes the new general manager of the hotel, Gu. She is surprised to see who she thought was Gu Li. But more surprised is Sa Rang to see that the guy she has had a couple of unfortunate encounters with is the new manager. Gu has to give a speech, but he keeps quiet looking at everyone. Then he has a flashback of his childhood where the people around him smiled at him. So when he sees everyone smiling at him, he starts to feel bad, as he can't bear to see any of those fake smiles. After a while he can finally make a speech. Although his presentation is not very long, finally he is able to speak. Then it is time for the best talent of the hotel, Sa Rang, to welcome Gu. She is completely embarrassed, so she brings him the flowers covering her face. Gu tries to see her and then he realizes that it is her. Later, Gu is meeting with Sang and Sa Rang. Sang mentions that Gu will soon have to film a promotional video together with Sa Rang. Gu tells Sang that he can leave, but tells Sa Rang to stay. He reminds her that he warned her that he did not want to see her again. She says she will do her best to avoid him from now on. He, seeing her medal for best talent, asks her if she knows what hospitality is. After that, Gu asks her why she thinks he's a pervert. She replies that not only was he making weird sounds in the gym, but he also sent her a letter inviting her to his room. Gu stands up because he knows he's never done anything like that. Besides, he makes it clear that she's not his type of girl. Gu asks her if she was sure it's him, to which she replies that the guy was wearing a tiger shirt. She clearly heard that a man in a tiger print shirt was the one who gave her that letter. Gu gets upset, as that means she just made an assumption based on his shirt. There, Sa Rang realizes that he was not responsible, so she apologizes and asks him why he did not tell her earlier, to which he replies that he did not have the opportunity to do so. Gu asks her to stop smiling, as he hates fake smiles, but she says she must do it at work, as it is part of the uniform, but still. Gu tells her not to do it or he will fire her. Sa Rang becomes serious and apologizes again for what happened that day. Gu asks her to take the flowers and leave. From there we go to see Pyeong. She is on a flight. A passenger brings a suitcase and doesn't bother to put it away by himself, so she will do it, but the suitcase is very heavy, so his colleague, called Lee Roon, helps her so she doesn't get hurt. Moments later, the stewardess manager asks who took a passenger's coat, as it is not in the wardrobe. The responsible was this girl, who literally threw it away. She completely misunderstood what the passenger had asked for. That's the coat. The manager is angry as she might get fired. Pyeong decides to take responsibility for the situation, so she goes to apologize to the passenger, who tells her that she must give him the coat on time or else he won't let her get away with it. That's why we now see how Pyeong desperately asks for help to get the coat washed. This guy refuses, even though she offers a lot of money, but moments later he ends up accepting, so Pyeong runs to hand over the coat. But the distance was too long, so she was getting tired, at which point Lee reappears to help her. He will run and hand over the coat for her. From there we go back to Sang. He tries to approach Kim, but she immediately rejects him and reproaches him for pretending to be Gu. But Sang never pretended to be Gu. Still, Kim refuses to have dinner with him, as she has nothing to do with the secretary, so Sang starts to make fun of her and refers to her as a snob, then informs Sa Rang that she will attend Gu's welcome dinner as a representative of all the staff. Kim gets angry, as she is supposed to be the representative, but Sa Rang tells her that a stuck-up manager could not represent the staff, so she takes Sa Rang to the dinner. The dinner will be at the most luxurious place in the hotel, King the Land. It is a VIP lounge. She has never been there before, but just now, she is also a VIP. Inside there everything is very luxurious. There are many things to do. Then Gu arrives and tells her that she is supposed to do everything to avoid meeting him. At Gu's table, there is his family. There they start talking about the huge price of tuna. Then this old lady asks Gu if he will take over King the Land, which he is not at all happy to hear from Hyua. But Hun intervenes to say that it is a competition, the best of the two wins everything. Hun thanks everyone present and asks them to show support for Gu. Sa Rang does so by drawing a lot of attention, so Hun asks her who she is. Hyua replies that she is the best talent in the hotel and that she is there representing the staff. That is why Hun invites her to the table. Then, Sa Rang gives a few words for Gu, while he looked at her sideways knowing that everything she said was false. Hun likes Sa Rang's personality, so he asks to be given the best part of the tuna. Then Gu is told to stand up, as he is the man of the hour. So he says a couple of words and moments later looks at Sa Rang and says he will turn the hotel into a place with no fake smiles. There comes a moment where Gu is left alone at the table with Hyua. He tells her that he doesn't care about management or taking over the company, so there is no need for Hyua to be afraid. Besides, he says he doesn't plan to work there for so long. Moments later, they hand Sa Rang the tuna. She asks this girl if she can leave, to which she curtly replies that she can, as no one cares there. So she leaves while Gu watched her. Later, Sa Rang is on her way home in the bus and calls her grandmother to ask her if she wants tuna, but she says she is busy. So she calls her boyfriend to invite him to eat tuna and clarifies that it is worth 700 million, but the guy refuses as he is eating with his team in Busan. Sa Rang is surprised as they were supposed to travel the next day to Namsan, but this idiot had completely forgotten about it. He insists that she let him pass at this time, so she hangs up. Soon after, the bus suddenly breaks and the tuna head falls off, causing everyone to panic. Later, Sa Rang arrives home and together with Pyong. They have no idea what to do with the tuna as it disgusts them. Sa Rang can't even make eye contact. Moments later, Kang arrives and is excited to see the tuna, then prepares it for them all to eat. Kang mentions that she is good at cooking since she has a daughter. Sa Rang tells them the price of the tuna and they both start spitting it out, because if the price of the whole tuna was 700 million, the head must cost 140 million, so they think about selling it. But they don't know anyone who would pay that much for tuna, so they eat it. After dinner, Hun tells Gu to go home to sleep, as they will continue drinking. Once Hun leaves, Hyua asks Gu what he will do, to which he replies that since he was invited, he will go. Hyua tells him not to set foot on uneven ground. Sang arrives to pick Gu up and Gu asks him to open the car door for him, but Gu changes his mind in the end and decides not to go to his father's house. Meanwhile, Sa Rang came across a book she wrote as a child about her own hotel, and it was planned everything she wanted. From there we see a flashback where Sa Rang drew a picture of herself and her mother on the beach. At that moment, she drew the picture of the pink hotel and told her mother that when she grew up, she would work in a hotel. She remembers this with much love, and she is fulfilling her childhood dream. On the other hand, Gu was working out to exhaustion. After that, we see Kang arrives at her work, where she is greeted by her colleagues. As she has been promoted, they are happy to have Kang as manager. So Kang will give her first words as manager. From now on, they will each get their own lunch, and this will be the last day that the junior member will prepare snacks for them. They at first refuse, as doing these things is kind of a tradition they've had for a long time. But like us, Kang doesn't think it's a good enough tradition to keep up, so they eat and get ready to open up later. Kang shows why she's the manager. She approaches these two guys to convince one of them to buy those glasses, even though his friend said they look bad on her. Kang manages to convince him that they look amazing on him. She also tells them that they are unique glasses, so he ends up taking them. Pyong was there watching everything. She is there because she wants something she can use to give as a token of gratitude. Kang jokes with her and tells her that it is actually a gift for the boy she likes. Pyong is embarrassed and tries to leave, but Kang won't let her leave empty-handed. Back at the hotel, Sa Rang is dealing with this lady, who despite having a room at the hotel, wants to be upgraded to a suite, but the hotel rules do not allow such an upgrade. The lady intervenes to ask Sa Rang if she knew her. Apparently she is a famous lady. She threatens Sa Rang to destroy the reputation of the hotel by giving bad reviews on the internet. Sa Rang maintains her position, and even offers her several options, but the lady insists on being updated. She asks to speak to the manager, but the manager does not want to get involved in that problem. Then, we see that Gu came walking and sees in the distance the lady arguing with Sa Rang. so he asks what is going on. The old lady tells Gu that if he is not the manager, he should not intervene. Sa-rang explains the situation to Gu. Gu tells her to just charge the old lady extra and do it, but that's not all. As that old lady is a famous actress called Mo Seong-ae, and she said she would give publicity if she was given the upgrade to suite for free. So what Sa-rang was explaining was that the hotel rules don't allow that. Gu asks Sa-rang how long she has been working there. She replies 7, to which Gu is surprised that she still doesn't know how to handle rude guests like that old lady. What the old woman is doing is not right, so Gu tells Sa-rang to call security to have her thrown out. Gu leaves while the old woman wants to talk to her. But her assistant tells her that many people are watching them and her tantrum won't do any good if people post it on the internet, so she now goes to Sa-rang again to keep insisting. Gu tells Sa-rang to go to his office, then tells the manager to do her job of protecting the staff and to call security. The old lady now gets angry with the manager, as all this time she was there watching. Gu beckons Sa-rang to follow him. Later, in Gu's office, Gu asks Sa-rang if the hotel does not have a manual against rude guests, as she should not put up with such nonsense. Sa-rang mentions that they should remain hospitable no matter what the circumstances. She mentions that even if they are not at fault, it is in the hotel handbook to apologize to guests to make sure they are not offended. What a horrendous handbook. Gu asks her who designed the handbook, to which she replies that the higher-ups, probably people like him. In the hotel, she is not Chin Sa-rang, but a concierge. Her job is to stay professional. She is about to leave, but Gu tells her not to ask him anything. No favorite color, no weather, no food, as he doesn't like anything, but she never asks. Gu tells her he will. Sa-rang doesn't understand anything, but Gu refers to the interview they will have soon, which Sa-rang had no idea about. Sang is called to ask him why Sa-rang didn't know about the interview. He replies that he just gave her the proposal to review. Gu reviews it and throws it at him. Sang mentions that it's an order from the president. Gu refuses to act like a clown. Sang mentions that showing his face to the public is necessary, so he will go and do it together with Sa-rang. Technically they are going to war. Gu sighs because they both look like idiots to him. Long story short, Sa-rang is supposed to do a live promo show with Gu. Sang told her about the promo video, but Sa-rang was never told it would be a live show. Sang tells her she won't have to do anything but read the script. Sa-rang asks to review the script. Sang talks to her quite casually, so they both agree to treat each other that way. Sa-rang asks for the script. She will do as she is asked, but she needs to know what she is up against. She asks him to take it to the lobby, but first, she formally says goodbye to Gu. Gu asks Sang how they choose the best talent in the hotel. In the evening, Sa-rang goes out with her boyfriend, Gong. He made her climb a lot of stairs as he thinks she is standing all day in the hotel. Once at the top, it is quite nice. What is not nice is that Gong gets a call from his team and they tell him that he must meet, so Gong tells Sa-rang that they must leave. It seems like a joke because they have just arrived, but they stay a little longer to do some bonding. Gong throws away the padlock that was supposed to represent the love between the two of them and that they would hang there, so instead he ends up hanging a measly key. At least Gong takes Sa-rang to the meeting with the team, where he introduces her to everyone, but Sa-rang doesn't feel comfortable at all, especially when Gong doesn't even sit next to her. This guy doesn't deserve her. Sa-rang can't stand the awkwardness, and it gets worse when this group of girls start talking to her in a rather obnoxious way. Sa-rang can't take it anymore and decides to leave for her own good. Gong follows her. She is angry, wondering if she should keep going out with him. She tells him they can talk about it later. She will leave. Gong says he will go say goodbye and then walk her home, but he comes back and joins in again. This guy is a joke. Sa-rang leaves alone. Meanwhile, Gu continued with his investigation, looking in the records for Han Mi-su's name, but he finds nothing, not even with the identification. It is as if this person does not exist. Moments later, Gu goes outside to clear his head. Meanwhile, Sa-rang was walking in the same place and stood several meters away from him. Neither noticed the other's presence. They were just thinking about their own misfortunes. Moments later, they both go their separate ways. From there we go to the next morning, at the airport, where Sang and Gu are waiting for Sa-rang. She arrives moments later. Gu is stunned by how pretty she looks. He doesn't even seem to mind her smile. Sa-rang greets him and Gu goes blank, then reacts to tell her that she is late. She says she is on time. Sang confirms that she is actually on time. Moments later, Gu asks them both if they are close in the way they treat each other. Sang replies that they are, as they are now on first-name terms. Gu tells them not to play games at work and to stop calling each other names. Sang says it doesn't matter as they are not in the office, but Gu tells him it doesn't matter where they are. Next, Gu throws his suitcase to Sa-rang to carry it, but she ends up dodging. This causes the suitcase to hit the guy behind. The guy asks Sa-rang if the suitcase is hers, to which she replies that it is Gu's, so the guy calls Gu. Sa-rang tells him that he should take care of his suitcase himself. Gu expected her to help him as his subordinate, but Sa-rang only came for the promotional video, not as a subordinate, so she leaves Gu alone to have a chat with the guy. Sang also walks away. The old man expects an apology from Gu for hitting him, so Gu slowly approaches him and looks him in the face in a provocative manner. Moments later, he apologizes by giving him money. The guy tells him that money is not the answer to all problems, but seeing that it was $1,000,000 he even offers to carry Gu's suitcase. So yes, money did solve it after all. Later, we see that they arrive to Jeju Island, where they will shoot the video. Gu's car is ready. It's a pretty luxurious one. Si-Rang is excited because she had never seen one like this. Sang gets ready to get into the car, putting on some sunglasses as if she was in Las Vegas. But the truth is that neither of them will get in because Gu will wait for them at the hotel. This because of what they did to him at the airport. So they will have to take a taxi. This is how Gu drives while Sang and Si-Rang's taxi follow him until they arrive at the hotel, which has a beautiful view. Si-Rang is very happy. Next, Gu receives a call from his father. He tells him that the interview is from an important business channel, so it is not only for promotional purposes. It is also like a symbolic statement that Gu will join the group. So Gu's performance in the interview will affect the share price of the King Group, so Gu must do well. The film set is set up. Si-Rang is putting on her makeup and reading the interview questions. Moments later, this girl arrives to tell her that the questions have been updated. This on orders from director Hyua, and speaking of her, she is informed that the questions were handed in shortly before filming began, so her plan is going well. Gu arrives for the interview, while Si-Rang waits eating some sweets. She is shocked to see how great and stunning Gu looked. Then they both look at each other and get ready to start the live interview. The interview is about to begin. Gu, seeing her nervous, asks her if she hasn't memorized the questions yet, but she replies that it's all in her head. He makes fun of how nervous she is. She tells him that he did a head-to-toe hairdo for a simple TV appearance with a cowlick hairstyle. Gu doesn't understand what hairstyle that is, so he searches the internet, only to realize that she was making fun of him. Moments later, the interview begins. In the hotel, opinions were divided. Some thought that Si-Rang looked pretty, others criticized her because she was just makeup. Han was expectant to the interview. Then, the questions begin. The first one is if Gu's mother was a founding member of the King Hotel. Realizing that the questions were about his mother, Gu gets angry, while Hyua laughed because it was all part of her plan. Si-Rang doesn't understand what is going on. Gu gets up and leaves her alone in front of the cameras. The producer asks Si-Rang to improvise, so she starts talking to make time. Gu remembers what his father told about his mother. He then replied that he doesn't even know if his mother is alive or not. He also remembers Hyua's attitude. This makes Gu start to get dizzy from how bad he feels. Si-Rang kept talking to buy time. She did it in a very natural way. She mentioned that it was always her dream to work in a hotel and she was lucky enough to work in the King Hotel. Moments later, Gu returns to the live broadcast. He might be able to handle his situation, but he asks Si-Rang the questions. As he reads it, realizes that each and every question has to do with his mother, so he throws them away and tells Si-Rang to ask him things that really interest her. She doesn't quite know what to do, so she improvises and asks him if he likes the sunset. Gu turns around. The sun is setting, so he gets up and asks Si-Rang to join him. They both watch the sunset. Later, Gu asks Si-Rang if it is okay for a mere employee to question the CEO. She says that this may be a minor problem for him, but for an employee like her, such a situation could lead to her dismissal. Gu asks her why she is trying so hard when there are thousands of hotels, to which she replies that even though he has luxuries, there are people who work hard to make ends meet. She asks Gu not to get in her way. As she doesn't want to be affected, Gu approaches her. Moments later, Sang appears to tell that both the photo they have taken and the place has gone viral, so Sang proposes to continue with the theme, as if they were a couple. Gu tells him that the shooting will be over in an hour and it will be one shot per location. Sang tells him that the shooting is not a joke, but Gu doesn't change his mind. After Gu leaves, Sang explains to Si-Rang what she should do, but she is still shocked by what had happened. Moments later, we see that Gu is in his room holding the watch. Then we see a flashback where we confirm that this watch is valuable to him because it was a gift from his mother. However, we still don't know why it is broken. On the other hand, Si-Rang is in her room thinking about what happened, but from there we go to the airline. The manager was taking everyone's weight, but there is something that doesn't add up. It is this girl's turn. She weighs 51.9 kilograms and she had placed that she weighed only 51 kilograms. This is a problem for this woman, so she gets points off for lying until it is Pyong's turn, who takes all the medals off. She weighs 53 kilograms. This makes the manager angry. Pyong tries to justify herself as the last time she weighed herself. She weighed 50 kilograms, so she says it must be because of what she has eaten. The manager tells her that then she has 3 extra kilos of poo. Pyong says she will lose weight. The manager says it was carelessness like this that caused Pyong not to be promoted. Lee gets up to get weighed, but unlike the girls, the manager tells him that there is no need for him to do so, as she can tell just by looking at him that he has a good body. The manager is about to leave when Lee tells her that it is her turn to be weighed. She is offended and just walks away. Later, Lee tells Pyong that she should not go on a diet because she is already beautiful. She thanks him for that, although she thinks he doesn't mean it. Moments later, Pyong gives Lee the gift she bought as a thank you. It is for his mother, to which Lee tells him that she thanks him but the gift is for his mother. She tells him it is because he must be a good son. Next, we see these two getting ready for the photo shoot. They are asked to smile. Si-Rang has no problem. while Gu refuses and says that Sa Rang's smile is fake. The photographer has a feeling that Gu won't smile, to which his partner says he will once they start taking the photos. But I don't think so. The photos start, Sa Rang is doing great, but Gu doesn't even dare to do a heart. It looks like he is doing something else. Besides, he is not smiling. Then they change places for more photos. Sa Rang tells Gu to smile and not to get in the way, to which Gu reminds him that he had told him not to fake smile. Gu boasts about being good at everything, so Sa Rang teases him that he knows how to do everything but smile. He says he knows how to do it, he just doesn't want to. The photo session continues. Gu tries to smile, or well, more or less, no idea what that is. After that, the photographer mentions that everything can be fixed with a bit of Photoshop. Finally, they arrive at the last place to take the last photos. It is on a boat. Gu doesn't want to do it because he hates boats. Sa Rang asks Sang to go with them, as she doesn't want to go alone with Gu, but Sang can't go with them. The captain of the boat arrives, so they both have to get on. Once they leave, the photo is to be taken as if they are holding a fish, but a big one, when in fact they have a small one, but they have to act. So they both do it, or well, Gu tries to. Moments later, he gets tired and puts the fish back in the water. This ends the photo session, but once they are returning, the captain starts to have problems with the boat. Because of this, and because the weather was not looking good, he suggests they head for Gapato, but Gu tells him to go ahead. But the captain insists that the boat is in bad shape and they don't want to be affected by a typhoon, but Gu refuses, as he hates boats and wants to go home, so the captain tells him that if he wants to go back so badly, he should swim, but that's nonsense, so Gu orders Sa Rang to ask the captain to take them back. But it doesn't work out either. Back with Kang, one of his co-workers brings snacks, when she specifically told her not to buy any. But she was told that Kang didn't mean it when she said that as manager she would get rid of the old ways, so she brought snacks later. Kang talks seriously to all of them and tells them that no one will be able to take weekends off except her, as a punishment. Because if they wanted to go back to the old traditions so badly, she will do it. So Kang orders Yubin to take care of the food and snacks, and only she will be able to rest on weekends. Kang gives them one last chance, as she won't let it go next time. She doesn't want anyone to be treated unfairly during her term. Now back to these two, who had no choice but to go to the nearest island. The captain tells them that there is a very luxurious hotel there, so they both start walking. Although Gu doesn't seem to be in the mood for it, he tries to call Sang, but there is no service. Seeing that he was getting lonely, he starts to move forward. He is clearly afraid of the dark. Moments later, they see something in the distance. Sa Rang tells him it is the hotel and asks him if he is afraid, to which he replies that he has never been afraid of anything and that he is at the back to watch the rear. But moments later, he is attacked by a chicken and becomes more frightened. Sa Rang wants Gu to admit he is scared, as it is nothing to be ashamed of. So to prove he is not afraid, Gu goes ahead, and all goes well. Until when he turns around he looks at this terrifying lady and faints. Sa Rang doesn't understand what happened. Later, Gu wakes up surrounded by strange symbols. He is more scared than ever, and more so when he sees the old lady from before sharpening a knife. So he gets up to run, but he meets an old man with a scythe. He looks for Sa Rang everywhere, until he ends up falling down and meets her. The old lady approaches Gu and tells him that he is too fearful. Besides, the old man tells him that if he continues to be so fearful, he will not be able to take care of his wife. When he fainted, it was Sa Rang who carried him there. Both are in the most luxurious hotel of that island, which also has the best restaurant. The old lady thinks that this is their honeymoon, but seeing that they both answered no, she thought they were having an affair. But Sa Rang clarifies that they only have a working relationship, to which the lady replies that you can go from that to having a relationship. But Sa Rang mentions that she doesn't date just anyone, which makes Gu take offense, as he doesn't consider himself a just anyone. She just nods with a smile. The old man tells them they can continue discussing as a couple later, as they are invited to drink. The drink is a rather famous wine, which the hotel doesn't bring up. The old woman asks them if they can drink, to which Sa Rang says Gu is very fragile and probably can't, but he doesn't want to be left behind by letting her call him fragile, so they both fight to see who drinks from the biggest container. The first drink is quite strong, but neither of them give in. After finishing the first drink, they both say it's not that strong either and ask for more. It's a fight to see who falls first. Later, the wine starts to take effect. Gu asks Sa Rang why she is smiling at him. She ends up denying it. She tells Gu that he is too irritating, to which he replies that nothing works when he is with her, so he drunkenly tells Sa Rang to get out of his sight from now on. Sa Rang hits him, to which Gu tells him that she will regret it, as he is not someone she can hit in the street. Sa Rang tells him that all people are equal, so everyone should be treated equally. Not because he is rich he deserves special treatment. Sa Rang complains about the silly guests she has to put up with, plus now she has to put up with Gu too. She laughs, calling him a snob. Gu tells her that she is a fake double face because she always smiles falsely. She mentions that it is a skill she acquired after dealing with many idiotic people. He refuses to believe that. Then she asks him to pour her a drink. Gu thinks she is joking, but she is not. Then she does. Sa Rang tells Gu that he has the freedom to do whatever he wants without being judged. Sa Rang mentions that at least he doesn't have to fake a smile. She always smiles. Even when she's sad or hurt, she thinks it's better to suffer the pain, because if someone suffers because of her, it would make her feel worse. Sa Rang asks him why he dislikes smiling so much. There Gu has a flashback to his childhood where his watch is broken and he is surrounded by people falsely laughing. So he replies that they all wear smiles as a mask, to which Sa Rang tells him that she is sure that some of those smiles were real. Moments later, she starts smiling looking at that fan, and Gu stares at her, which makes her smile a little, but stops to tell her not to smile from now on even during working hours. She must not smile in front of him, but she refuses and starts smiling again. The next morning, Sa Rang wakes up with a hangover. When she tries to take off her stockings, she falls and ends up falling on top of Gu because their rooms were separated by a curtain, as it was a room to be used as a couple. Gu approaches her, which makes her nervous, but then she starts to look out the window. Later, Sa Rang goes out to enjoy the scenery, minus Gu. So the old man brings him a bike to ride before the boat returns. Gu at first refuses, but the old man tells him to go after her. So Gu goes after Sa Rang to convince her to get on the bike to get to a special place. So now they ride all over the island together, having a great view of the sea. Even though he wants to deny it later, Gu had a good time and was even smiling. After that, Sa Rang buys him a drink. Gu says he will pay for it later, but she only expected a thank you moments later. The old lady gives them the bill for staying at the hotel. It's 675,000 won. It's quite an exaggerated amount, which leaves Sa Rang's mouth open. She tells the old lady that they only used one room, but the old lady tells them that as they didn't sleep together, they are charged separately. It's a scam everywhere you look, but Gu wants to pay with the credit card on his phone. The old lady doesn't understand anything as she doesn't know much about technology, so she refuses to accept that. She doesn't believe there is a card there. Moments later, the captain of the ship arrives. They tell him what's going on. The old woman says loudly that they refuse to pay, so the captain of the ship, who is her son, intervenes. Gu explains that he will pay, but he doesn't understand that they can pay that way either, so he threatens to leave them there. So Gu says he will tell his assistant to pay the money, at which point Sa Rang uses her intelligence to negotiate with the old woman and get a fair price based on everything they did at the hotel. The old woman refuses, as she says that just because they are rich they want to avoid paying for everything. Seeing that it didn't work, Sa Rang mentions that the old woman and the captain are related, and asks him if the boat was really malfunctioning. He gets nervous, which means that it was all part of his plan, so in order not to be denounced, he ends up accepting the amount of money Sa Rang offered. Back on the boat, Sa Rang explains that it is wrong to cheat others and that money should be earned honestly. Gu doesn't understand much. Then she apologizes to him for the stone she threw at him earlier, referring to the interview questions, but Gu says he had forgotten about that. Back at home, Sa Rang meets Pyong and Kang, where they both ask her if the live broadcast went well. Sa Rang replies that Gu is an idiot. Then Kang asks Pyong if he delivered the gift, to which Sa Rang immediately deduces that Pyong is dating someone, but she says he's just a junior. They both tell Kang that it's time for her daughter to go home, so they walk her to the bus while complaining that at this point none of the three of them have a car. Kang says goodbye to them. Sa Rang tells her that she is the one who is doing the best of the three of them. Then we see Gu, who went to his father's house. There he got up the courage to enter the room. Next, Hyua and Hun show up. Hun tells Gu that he shouldn't have walked out on the interview because of one question. Gu tells him that the important thing is that they got a lot of visibility. Hun claims that Gu made a mess and an employee ended up solving it for him. Hun tells Gu that he is too grown up to be looking for answers about his mother now. Gu just wants to know the truth. Hun tells him that he must stop this nonsense. The only thing he can rely on is money, because to love, to laugh is all nonsense. Hun says that there is no such thing as love. So Gu confronts him. Hun tells him that it is his duty to protect what his father inherited, and now it is Gu's duty to do so. Gu maintains his position. He wants to know the truth, so Hun says no more and leaves. Hyua tells him that he will soon be kicked out of the house. He tells her that she need not fear anything, as he does not want to stay with the company. The next day, Sa Rang is greeted at the company with congratulations for the interview, as she is now the star of the hotel, but this broad is still jealous and belittles Sa Rang, saying that she would have done better. Suddenly, Hun arrives, approaches Sa Rang and says that he understands why she was chosen as the best talent in the hotel for 2 years in a row. So he tells her that from tomorrow, she will work at King the Land. As an employee who loves the hotel, she should be given the opportunity to elevate it to the highest point. Gu looks at the photos. In all of them he has a poker face, but he keeps looking at this one of Sa Rang. He even zooms in and starts smiling. But he changes immediately when Sang suddenly arrives. Sang tells Gu that the official photos are ready, so Gu looks at them and realizes that all of them are photoshopped, even the fish. But the worst thing is Gu's smile, which is not natural at all, so he tells Sang to bring the photographer. After that, he continues to look at Sa Rang's picture, smiling, but at the same time wondering what the hell is wrong with him. Then he takes a psychological test to find out if he likes someone, but he doesn't, does he? Well, yes, he does, after answering all the questions. The result is that he does like someone, but it is an unrequited love. He can't help smiling when he sees Sa Rang smiling. Gu goes downstairs, but meets Sa Rang, so he avoids her. While trying to hide, He looks at some sweets that were the same ones Sa Rang was eating before the interview, so he knows she likes them, so he buys some. After that, he follows her to give them to her and everything could have gone well. But just when leaving the hotel, Gu realizes that Sa Rang is being hugged by another guy, so he immediately assumes that he is her boyfriend and gets completely discouraged. So he leaves, but he should have stayed, because Gong apologizes to Sa Rang, telling her that he won't do it again, but he doesn't even know what he did wrong, he just apologizes for doing it. He says that when his schedule is free, they can go on a trip, but this fool doesn't even remember the place Sa Rang had told him she wanted to visit or the food she wanted to eat. Sa Rang invites him to a quiet place, as he has something to tell her. He wants to know now, as he will meet with his team members. Sa Rang sighs, as this means he came to clear his conscience before meeting with his friends. He says he delayed the meeting time to wait for her. She tried to be understanding, as nobody is perfect, but there is no point in being considerate to someone who does not value her. This guy still doesn't understand the situation he's in. Sa Rang is breaking up with him, as she feels bad being around him. She's tired of playing along. Gong acts offended and calls her selfish, only to prove once again that Sa Rang doesn't care because he picks up the phone. Sa Rang goes on her way, leaving him behind. On the other hand, we see that Gu is not very well. At a traffic light, he questions his jealousy, as he doesn't accept that he has feelings for Sa Rang, then decides to throw the sweets out of the window. Unlucky that the police were coming, the policeman tells him he has to pick up the rubbish, so Gu picks it up and tells the policeman to throw it away, but they don't do that. The policeman suspects that it was a gift for his girlfriend but ended up throwing it away because his girlfriend has another man. Gu denies all this, but the policeman says that it is not the first time he has seen something like this. Gu says that Sa Rang is very pretty, so the policeman tells him not to be carried away by her beauty and to control himself. Then he feels bad for him and decides not to fine him, as he went through something similar. He seems to give up and tells Gu to go after her, but moments later, the two sit down to discuss the situation. Gu tells the policeman that he has no experience with women, to which the policeman tells him that at least he has money. The policeman knows that Gu has no idea how he feels about Sa Rang. Gu is about to ask him how he knew, to which the policeman replies that his woman was pretty too, but she left with another man and he feels tormented. Gu gives him a sweet to cheer him up. Moments later, the policeman leaves. Meanwhile, Sa Rang was crying on the bus, thinking about who she should call to make her feel better. She calls her grandmother to ask if she could visit her tomorrow, as she is looking forward to eating her favorite food. From there we go to Sa Rang's grandmother's small restaurant. She went the next day and is helping out a bit. Grandma is annoyed that the customers call her granddaughter-in-law, as they don't even have children. After the customers leave, both are left alone while eating. Her grandmother notices that something is wrong with her, but she just says that she came to see her. Her grandmother tells her that she should get married soon, and uses Kang, who already has a daughter, as an example. Sa Rang tells her that Pyong is not married and has no children, to which her grandmother doesn't seem to like her very much because she thinks she is a bad influence. So she tells Sa Rang that she should throw Pyong out. Sa Rang is about to leave, but her grandmother tells her to wait, as she will give her some garnishes for Gong. Sa Rang stops her to tell her that they broke up recently. Her grandmother is happy about it. She knows Sa Rang, so she knows that the breakup is not her fault. She tells her that she should be with a good man no matter the money, so she is happy that she broke up with Gong. Moreover, she makes it clear to her that when she feels bad in the future, she should let off steam. She is even allowed to be a crybaby and is free to tell her grandmother everything, so Sa Rang thanks her. From there we go to Hun, who is meeting with the owner of the Royal First Hotel. He says that there is a part of his hotel that has already surpassed King the Land. This guy's lifelong dream has been to surpass the King Hotel. Hun tells him that he has only surpassed the room, so he shouldn't make a fuss. Hun mentions that he heard that the owner of Royal spent a fortune to be number one. He mentions that it was just an investment and that his win against King after years gives him a different perspective on business. Hun is kind and tells him that he can try to catch up, but the truth is that he is upset with this. So he meets with Hiyua and Gu to ask them why the hotel bar revenue is so low. Gu says the more sophisticated the hotel, the more VIP customers. That's why competing hotels compare bar revenue. Hun asks him why Royal is first if he knew this, then tells them both he trusted them. So he tells them to work together to get back to the top. Same for the mall and the airline. With that said, Hun leaves and they are left alone. Hiyua tells Gu that he should not be in charge of anything. He just has to stand by while she does everything. Gu feels the belittlement, to which Hiyua asks him if he thought he was important. At that moment, Gu remembers the words Sa Rang said to him earlier, that everyone should be treated equally, but Hiyua tells him that he is the exception. Sa Rang says goodbye to Kim to start work at King the Land, to which she again becomes jealous and belittles her, telling her that she will be fired soon and that the president only put her there because he doesn't know her. Moments later, the manager of King the Land shows up to take Sa Rang away. She doesn't care what Kim says. Moments later, she explains to Sa Rang what kind of guests come to this part of the hotel. It is a dream for all concierges to work there, but it is not something that everyone can achieve. Sa Rang never imagined working there. Then the manager shows her a painting that President Hun got in New York, claiming that he has an eye for art. So if it was him who recruited Sa Rang for King the Land, she trusts his judgment, then tells her not to worry about people talking behind her back, as she should respect herself before others do. Sa Rang's uniform is ready, and it looks great. Meanwhile, Gu was thinking about the scene he saw earlier. Sang asks him if he was thinking, to which he says yes, all night, and remembers when he talked to the policeman, but Sang refers to how to regain first place in revenue. He tells Gu that the Royal Hotel got first place by selling wine for 100 million won, so he is sure that is what he will do. Gu tells him that the money must be earned honestly, referring to what Sa Rang had told him. Sang starts laughing, as he thinks it's a poor man's line. Sang is very animated. He acts like he's the CEO. Moments later, Sa Rang walks in and he is lost in her gaze. Sang welcomes Sa Rang to King the Land. Gu says if King the Land has the best employees, then they will have to keep an eye on Sa Rang and teach her the basics of sophistication, since he knows her after she leaves. Sang notices that Gu acts like he likes Sa Rang, telling him that he doesn't know how to approach her and teases her like a child. Gu denies this to Sang and tells him that she is not his type, to which Sang continues talking and Gu kicks him out of the office. Sa Rang finally arrives at King the Land, where she meets the other employees, who, like those below, treat her with contempt, as they are graduates of well-known universities in Seoul and consider that the fact that someone like Sa Rang has been promoted detracts from their efforts. This guy claims to know the kind of person Sa Rang is, and refers to her as one of those they don't want in their territory. Later, Sa Rang has to sign a confidentiality contract, where she cannot talk about the guests or the conversations they have, and the girl tells her that she must delete her socials, as she cannot upload photos of this place. Sa Rang says she was not planning to do so, to which the girl threatens to return her to her old post, so Sa Rang ends up accepting the conditions. From there we go to the King Shopping Center, where Hyua goes with all her team to the shop where Kang is. She asks who is in charge. The supervisor is her, Du Rahi, so Hyua reads that she should work here from tomorrow, keeping this shop as the main target and doubling the sales. The girls don't seem to agree very much with the incorporation of Du, as they consider her an old hag, but Kang tells them that they should do the job anyway. Now we go to the airline. Hyua arrives and meets with the team with the lowest amount of duty-free sales. She then calls the flight attendant to ask her what she plans to do to increase sales. She replies that they will try harder. Hyua asks them for a specific plan, so she says that they will increase sales so that no customer leaves empty-handed. Hyua assumes that they will then double sales compared to now, so she hopes that she will not be disappointed. After that, Hyua goes to the kitchen and tells them that the Chinese restaurant has the highest sales of all the hotels. She demands the head chef to prepare new dishes for this week. When she is about to leave, she looks at a cook with a stained uniform and fires him. Further on, she looks at one of the employees with a mismatched suit and fires him too, causing some fear in those around her. Meanwhile, Sang tells Gu that he prepared a meeting with the staff about the revenue. He did this because he knows that Hyua visited each department and gave them a new sales target. Besides firing 2 people today, Sang is afraid that more people will be fired. Then Gu asks Sang if the meeting he scheduled also includes the staff of King the Land. The answer is yes, so they go to the meeting. Hyua looks at them. In the meeting, Gu pays no attention to what they say and just slyly looks at Sa Rang when it is his time to talk. He just asks for suggestions and ends up accepting what they think will be most effective. The meeting ends. Later, we see that Gu is thinking about calling Sa Rang. He finally sends her a message telling her that he has to talk to her after work. After that, he gets desperate because she doesn't even read the message. Hours go by and he keeps getting frustrated. He thinks she is still working or doing overtime, or even that it's his phone's signal. He now decides to wait until the sand falls, but still no answer, so he finally decides to call her, but she doesn't answer. Sa Rang was at home with Pyong, who was telling her how Hyua had gone to the airline and asks Sa Rang if Hyua did the same at the hotel, to which Sa Rang replies that she has no idea. She notices the call, but as she doesn't know who it is, she ends up hanging up. The two talk about work. Sa Rang tells her that they are given sales incentives at the hotel, while Pyong is jealous of Sa Rang's work team, as she is mistreated by her superiors and subalterns. Sa Rang tells her that she should ask Kang for help, and talking about her, she comes home and is a complete mess. There isn't even any food and the dishes are dirty, so she has to go out shopping. What happens is that her in-laws are there and they are useless slugs who can't do anything for themselves. Even Kang's little daughter knows this and says so. Her father-in-law tells Kang to go shopping immediately so she can cook, so she goes out with Cho Rong. While they are shopping, Cho Rong asks her why her grandparents steal everything from the fridge and go to the house to eat for free. She proposes to report them, but Kang tells her that it's only because she is good at cooking. Moments later, Kang calls her husband to pick her up, but he says he has an important meeting with a client, although it seems to me that this is not the case anyway. The next day, Gu, getting no response from Sa Rang, immediately goes out to look for her to tell her that they need to talk. Gu waits for her. Sa Rang approaches him. Gu tells her that she sent her a message and also called her. Sa Rang is surprised to see that he has her number, to which he replies that it is in her file, but she does not have Gu's phone number as she does not have access to the file, so Gu gives her his number. Gu tells her he must ask her something, but he will do so at dinner after work, as she bought him a drink in Gapato last time. He wants to return the favor. She insists he must not, so Gu directly invites her to dinner. She refuses to dine alone with him as it would be awkward, so Gu takes offense and leaves. Sa Rang has no idea what's wrong with him. Later, Sang shows Gu the retouched photos. Gu has to choose one. They all look the same, but Gu had his head somewhere else. He definitely had to have dinner with Sa Rang tonight, so he asks Sang to bring her over, telling her it's a welcome dinner at the hotel's Japanese restaurant. From there we go to see Pyong, who receives an uncomfortable and unpleasant visit. This guy tries to flirt with her. Pyong tries to move aside, but the harassment of this guy increases more and more. Fortunately, Lee arrives just in time and the guy leaves. Lee asks Pyong if she has plans for the night, to which she replies that she is tired and not in the mood. The truth is that Lee wants to have dinner with her, so he takes her to a nice place. Lee says he loves to see her happy. Pyong is speechless. Then she thanks him for everything. Lee said he couldn't not help her after seeing her run like that. Pyong tells Lee that being friends with her won't bring him any benefit, so he'd better stay away. Lee doesn't care about that. As he doesn't care about being promoted, she says he will regret being her friend, to which Lee replies that he will never regret it. Pyong deflects the subject and mentions that there is a girl who likes him, but Lee only cares about Pyong. He is very curious about her. Back at the hotel, it's time for dinner. Sa Rang greets Gu with a smile, but upon entering, he notices that there are many more people and backs away, then asks Sang why there are so many people there. Sang replies that he was supposed to prepare a welcome, so that's why they are all there. Gu gets angry because that's not what he meant. He even tries to leave, but Sang forces him in. Everyone eats but him and Sa Rang, so he goes to her to ask her if she doesn't like what she's eating, so he orders fancy meat for her. Sa Rang does not seem very cheerful despite this, but forces herself to eat. After being in the bathroom, she calls Gu to talk to him. She is angry, as she thinks Gu wants to put her in difficult situations. He tells her that he has no reason to do so. Those are not his intentions. She thinks Gu's kindness is being too unnecessary. She wants Gu to pretend from now on that he does not know her. Gu doesn't know what could have gone wrong. As Sa Rang returns home, she receives a call from Gong, but she doesn't answer when she arrives. She is greeted by Pyong and Kang, as it is her birthday and they have prepared a surprise for her, although Sa Rang doesn't seem very happy. She is impressed that Kang has been able to set all this up, to which Kang says she is an experienced housewife. They both gave Sa Rang a gift, a panty for her to have a night of passion with her boyfriend. What they don't know is that Sa Rang had recently broken up with Gong. She forgot to tell them because she has been so busy lately. She doesn't feel bad about it. She is relieved, to the point where she doesn't even know if she had a boyfriend. It is very clear that she has no plans to go back to that jerk. That's why Pyong brings some beer and they ask Sa Rang to get up to dance and celebrate. The next day at the hotel, Gu asks Sang if he sees himself as someone who never cared for others because he was born into a rich family. Sang says yes, and tells him that whoever said that, he is brave. Sang tells Gu to go ahead, as he is going to king the land first, because it is Sa Rang's birthday and he bought her a buffet coupon, one of the employee benefits. Upon entering the office, Gu finds Hyua inside with the watch. She is angry that Gu acted on his own and made a meeting. Hyua tells that he needs her permission and approval for everything Gu wants to do. Then Hyua again proposes a lot of money to Gu in exchange for him leaving the company. She says she is doing it for his sake, so that Gu doesn't end up like his mother, as no one remembers that woman. After Hyua leaves, Gu angrily remembers how his watch ended up broken, and that when he was a child, Hyua took it and threw it out of the window while telling him that his mother abandoned him because she didn't want him. Anger overcomes Gu. Now we see Sa Rang next to this other employee carrying some drinks. This guy tells her that he will be the head waiter and that all she has to do is to stay quiet in the back without butting in to sell something expensive. She nods. Inside, we see that the people there are Han and the owner of the Royal Hotel. Han wants wine recommendations, so the guy recommends some. The owner of Royal, upon seeing Sa Rang, recognizes her as the best talent and says she has a great smile, so he asks Sa Rang to give them suggestions. She suggests Xena, a premium wine from Chile. She explains each of the wine's strengths, which leaves Han and the owner of Royal surprised. The wife of the owner of Royal says Sa Rang sounds like a wine expert, but that is because Sa Rang is a certified sommelier. Han starts bragging that he has a good eye for choosing people. While the owner of Royal wants Sa Rang to work for his hotel, he offers to pay her double, to which Sa Rang is flattered. It is time to prepare the food. Later on, the boy complains to Sa Rang for intervening in that way, as he was planning to sell a 40 million won malt package and she ended up recommending a wine. The boy says that is why they talk about Sa Rang not having the basics to work there, to which she defends herself by saying that the chairman asked for a wine recommendation and he also suggested wine. This jerk tells Sa Rang that she should make sure to sell more expensive things. She just nods with a smile. Meanwhile, Gu is pensive, so he starts to search the hotel's personal register for his mother's information. An employee offers to help him search, to which Gu asks if a register can be left off the server. The employee replies that everyone is entered into the register from the first year, but still Gu finds nothing. The employee tells him that this is almost impossible, as the payroll and compensation list are in the accounting system, so no one can delete the records. The employee again asks Gu who he is looking for, but he does not give him an answer and leaves. Sa Rang leaves the hotel and is met with an unpleasant surprise. Gong was waiting for her outside with a birthday present and a reservation at a restaurant. She tells him that they are finished. She was very clear when she told him that she didn't want to see him again. This jerk still has no idea why Sa Rang is so angry. If she had broken up with Gong for the reasons he says, she would have broken up with him 100 times by now. Gong tries to apologize, but Sa Rang is fed up with him. Her love for him is over. They are strangers now, so she leaves. It was a rainy night. Sa Rang was feeling quite sad, so she stopped for a while in the rain to let off some steam. It was at that moment when Gu appeared next to her to protect her from the rain and keep her company. Under the excuse that this is also his place, she tried to leave, but stumbled and fell. Fortunately, Gu managed to hold her, and they both stared at each other in the eyes. But here is where this video ends. We're gonna see about this in a part 2. So guys, if you liked the video, subscribe and like to see part 2.